If you've ever created an art journal, memory book, or keepsake journal that became so full it literally wouldn't close anymore, this video is for you. This journal is one of my most precious creative objects. It holds years of memories, little treasures, collage, ephemera, keepsakes, and it finally reached a point where the original spiral binding simply couldn't hold it anymore. And I want to say this right up front, nothing went wrong, the journal didn't fail, it actually worked. I want to show you what I mean. You can see here some photos of the journal bursting. The cover was practically warped and the pages were all compressed. So this journal is 12 inches tall, but it was almost 9 inches thick because there are lots of dimensional elements inside, envelopes, layered collage, keepsakes, and the spiral was under constant tension. Recreating the journal was really not an option. It contains everything from my childhood scribbles pasted in to newspaper articles over the many years that would be impossible to replicate. So it isn't something you can just redo, it's something that you honor. Let me tell you some other options that I considered. I thought about taking it to a bookbinder, or even seeing if someone at Staples or Michael's had someone on staff who could help. But the book contains things that are personal and meaningful, and I didn't want to leave it with anyone if I could figure out a way to take care of it myself. So you might ask, well, why didn't you just get a bigger spiral? And my first instinct was just that. Can I replace the spiral with a bigger one? And it might have worked up to a point. But once a journal reaches a certain thickness, spiral bindings stop being practical. They compress the pages. It feels like they torque the spine and they don't play well with dimensional work. So I wanted a solution that would keep every page intact, allow the journal to open easily, and I actually wanted to be able to open it flat and give it room to keep growing and be completely reversible. I also considered breaking down the contents into several binders, but I wanted to at least try a solution to keep everything together and even allow room for more growth if possible. So what I tried first and what worked beautifully was individual oversized binder rings. And you can see what I mean right here. So instead of one continuous spiral, I used a small number of large rings spaced evenly along the spine. And this does a few important things. It removes pressure from the pages and allows the dimensional elements to just sit naturally inside the book. It distributes the weight of the journal and it gives you expansion room. So at first I threaded through a ring in every hole, but later I realized I like it better when I didn't use every single hole. And I intentionally skipped holes and used fewer rings to reduce stiffness and strain. So now let me just tell you how I installed them. The process was surprisingly gentle. I was nervous at first about taking the old spiral out. So I threaded a couple of the oversized rings in first, right over the spiral, just to make sure that it wouldn't fall apart. And then I removed the original spiral slowly using needle nose pliers and then this second pair of pliers. Now this took some patience at first, but once I got the hang of it, it went faster. No cutting pages, no damage at all. And then I threaded the rest of the oversized rings through groups of existing holes, spacing them evenly from top to bottom. And then once the rings were closed, I could see that the entire journal relaxed. So the pages turned easily again, nothing scraped, nothing fought me. And that was the moment I realized I knew this was the right solution. Now I had a hard time judging what size rings to buy. I initially bought rings that were too big, 4-inch rings. And then I ended up buying 2-inch rings, which ended up being perfect for Rich's journal, which is smaller. So these are 2-inch rings. And then I found these 3.5-inch rings for the bigger journal, and they're perfect. So here's another advantage I didn't realize before I started. I've always felt constrained working in a spiral journal, wishing I could remove pages for painting, touching up, and adding new keepsakes to the page, and then put them back in the journal. And now I can do that. It's so easy to just unsnap the rings, lift a page out, paint on it, and then put it back. And I also love that these pages now lay perfectly flat. Now I want to talk about why this is a living archive. At a certain point, a journal stops being a notebook and starts becoming an archive. And archives, I think, need a different architecture. So moving to rings didn't diminish this journal. It elevated it and said, you grew beyond what you were first designed to be. And then I've given myself permission that if someday this becomes too large again, I can then split it into volumes, volume 1, volume 2, which I don't see as a failure. I think that's a body of work. So if you're sitting with a journal that feels too full, I want you to hear this. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't overdo it. You created something alive. Sometimes the most creative act is simply giving our work the space it needs to continue. And if you found this helpful, I hope that you will share it with another artist who might need a little reassurance today. If you'd like more reflections on creativity, memory keeping, and making meaningful things, you're very welcome here. I have art journaling and creativity courses and examples of me making meaningful things right here on YouTube for free. Thanks for being here.